Hello everyone, welcome back to FFG Live. My name is Evan Johnson and I'm joined here today by all these fine gentlemen. Would you care to introduce yourselves really quickly?
I'm Jeremy Zwarn, lead designer, Star Wars Destiny.
I'm Aaron Haltom, other developer, Star Wars Destiny.
And Matt Holland, organized play community coordinator.
That's right, so we're here today to talk about our World Championships that are coming up next week. It's XWing and Star Wars Destiny.
Yeah.
So we're starting with Star Wars Destiny, and then these two guys will sidle out, and then we'll welcome in the XWing developers to come in and join us. So let's start talking about some Destiny. Moving into this World Championship, what does the meta look like? What do you guys kind of expect to see rising to the top? What do you think people will be bringing?
I think it's a very diverse meta. Very excited. Looking forward to this. There's a wide variety. We've got heroes and villains in all colors. So, like one of my personal favorite decks is Kylo Ren and Rey with the temporary truce plot.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of classic Destiny. Two wide, just playing upgrades and a lot of tactical
They have a really
play.
nice synergy too.
Oh yeah, very good.
And so thematic, right? It just
another thing,
captures
too. It's
perfectly.
Perfect. Yeah, it's one thing I've really been trying to push. There's more thematic pairings and stuff that are very strong as well. So it's definitely one of my personal favorites.
I want to see somebody who won or did really well at a Prime and has the Kylo Ray swag from that use that at Worlds playing Kylo Ray, because the Prime prizes for that were phenomenal.
Any other decks you guys looking forward to?
I've always been excited about Ewoks. I was amazed how well they did at Gen Con, and I know now that their battlefield has been restricted.
Arena of Death can't be run with them anymore.
Yeah, it a little bit hampered that deck, but now there's the Plo Koon variant that's coming up. That's really interesting.
I actually had to play against the Plo Koon variant yesterday, just getting some practice games in with the other guys who were commentating, and that was surprisingly nasty. Just the kind of clock-like damage that it put out. I enjoyed still playing droids. I played chopper droids yesterday. It still seems real good, even with some of those changes made to drop its power level a little bit. Just the ability to have that unmitigatable damage or action cheating still super strong. So I think someone who's good with that and is teching against the meta still has a good chance.
You can still use Han with that or Satine, so there's a variety of droids decks.
The Han one is on my list to play here over the next couple days as we continue to practice. But I think that the changes that you guys made recently have been pretty good for the meta overall, mixed things up and opened up some new options for people. So judging from what we've seen from Primes and just people playtesting, it seems to be a good change.
That's definitely a goal. Yeah, try to tone the little decks down a little bit, but still make them still viable. And then, we still have villain support, so I think it's still strong as well. So, got Afra versions and Java and a wide variety of teams.
Vader's Fist, and never going to be a bad card. Right. Even a little hit to it does not make that unplayable at all.
No.
Yeah, that card is great.
And Watt's still great as well.
Yep.
Yeah, my boy, Watambor.
You got Palpatine still out there. He's got multiple pairings to go with. He's always a very fun one to play. So.
And then Phasma dropping off the Balance of the Force, especially with the possible prevalence of Rey and Kylo Ren decks. Kylo Phasma is potentially a thing. So
potentially back.
Yeah. Hitting your Kylo triggers 100% of the time feels good.
Feels real good.
Yeah.
So a lot of cool stuff to look forward to.
Yeah.
You guys think that this is, so looking back, I guess, at the previous World Championships that happened for Destiny. So
the dark
they both been won, won by Villain and Blue, right? And actually Anakin in all of them. Since the first year it was Vader, Tusken Raider, and then it was Kylo Ren, Anakin.
Yes.
So is this the year that Anakin will lose? Or
I think Vader First Order Stormtrooper still has a chance.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other good decks out there that can give it a run for its money.
For sure.
Yeah. I hope Hero Anakin wins.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that would be great.
The blue, here he comes. You never know.
Put him in the droid deck, it'll work fine.
There are some really good hero decks, so this might be the year for heroes.
True. That'd be cool to see.
I know there's a lot of really good players who have been getting a lot of practice in with these new changes, so I'm excited to see how things shake out and will surprise us because I'm going to be doing a bunch of the commentary. So watching those games is going to be a lot of fun.
You're going to be doing so much of the commentary
So much.
for both X-Wing and Destiny. How would you guys kind of speculate, since it's been a while since we had a World Championship for Destiny, since it was last May, that we had our last one. There have been more than two sets released since then.
Quite
a few sets coming out since then. But we've had rotation, we've had Convergence and Spark of Hope. How do you think that has kind of impacted this year?
I think very big. There's the whole first cycle block rotated out. Now we've had 5 sets since then, or just 4 sets.
And that first block had so many just absolute staple cards. Incredible cards that were very meta shaping.
Yeah.
And now having a Worlds without that is really going to be interesting to see. We've had GQs, we've had large tournaments around the world in between, but I mean this is going to be a massive Destiny tournament.
There's lots of new cards that have come out since then that have really changed things and pushed the game in new directions. Supports are a lot more powerful than they were in previous Worlds. And new card types, downgrades and stuff. So look forward to seeing how things turn out.
I think losing things like Force Illusion and Second Chance made aggro a lot more viable now all of a sudden. So.
You think we'll start to see some of those decks coming in? Yeah. What would you guys guess at are some of maybe the lesser known decks that we might see performing well here at Worlds? Something that people might not come to spring to mind immediately.
I've seen a 4-LOM deck going around. It seems really cool and interesting. It features a lot of downgrades, which haven't really seen a lot of top tier play yet. So I think that's one that people should be on their radar to test against and be aware of.
I think downgrades are so cool just because they have really interesting effects, and there's some really cool ways to get them into play out of your discard pile or get benefits from using them. And we just did a sealed league, and I played a deck with a ton of downgrades really for the first time, and such a different sort of style of Destiny. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I love downgrades. That's so fun.
Especially with so many 3-character teams going around.
Yeah.
It's easier to pile up a lot of downgrades and get your bounties off and cash in.
People kind of underestimated downgrades in general, but also bounties in particular. I think when they first started being spoiled and released, because you don't really get the full effect of them until they get to a certain level of profusion, and then cards like IG-88 come out, and then he can hit 4 Ewoks at once with one swipe,
The dream.
The one in particular that I've seen really interesting with like those Ewok decks is the target acquired, right? And you have to have damage on a character, and then all indirect goes to them. That is terrifying if you're playing against like that Plo Ewok deck. Oh man, do not want to see that get played on your characters. I think there's a lot of room for somebody like Jango Fett to come in, strong aggro, the ability to just stack a lot of dice on him and roll consistent and big damage and blow characters out. So I'm excited to see. I mean, I like a lot of these decks that we have seen, like in the Hyperloop's Gauntlet or some of the other community lists. Like, hey, what should I be preparing for?
Right.
A lot of cool variety there, but I'm always interested to see what decks sort of start to crack the top tables that we didn't see coming. Those make for some really interesting games to watch because you really don't know how it's going to play out all the time.
It's cool to see Jango maybe come back. We haven't seen him since first set. He was kind of the first real strong deck Jango of years, so it's been a long time since he's been like a top tier character, so be cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you were excited for some Padme, right?
Yeah, hopefully she could make an appearance. She seemed so strong at first, but she's kind of fallen off lately. And I still think she's amazingly efficient.
Near to your heart.
So I guess kind of a follow-up question on that. What deck would you be playing if you were playing in the Destiny World Championship?
I would definitely go with Kylo Ray.
It's so good.
Just personal favorite. I've always loved that. So ever since I saw that scene in the movie, I'm like, that has to be a deck someday. So it's really cool to see that become a deck and be like a top deck. It's strong and just a fun, cool deck to play.
Yeah, I would probably play Saw Padme and lose to Jeremy's Kylo.
I would. Kylo Ray is probably my first choice because it's so thematic. it's good while also being incredibly thematic and like on brand, which is I think a really cool combination.
Yeah.
I have enjoyed playing some decks that are really thematic but just don't quite stand up to tier 1. Seeing Kylo and Rey be able to do that is really fun, and just the design or the build space within that archetype with which lightsabers do you bring, what do you run, binds all things or adapt, stuff like that is cool to play with.
Yeah.
I also really like supports, but I've always been more of a hero support guy. So the Watt Tambor kind of shenanigans, not as much my jam.
Well, that's been Matt Holland's time on the stream.
Oh no!
Do you have like a specific card or character that you'd really love to see in the tournament, even if you weren't, bringing it yourself? Something you would just love to see someone playing out there and wrecking face.
I love old Daka. It's such a fun, cool, interesting character just to get a horde of zombies out and play.
Yeah.
And just very different play style, very unique. So that's my kind of personal favorite. It's not the strongest card, but it's fun.
I love Chopper. So like Chopper and I Perform Violence and his whole suite, like load up Chopper, go to town, especially if you run into Ewoks, it's just butter. Yeah.
I really like the potential for Plo Koon to just be insane, especially in some of the 40-40 side events that are running.
Oh, yeah.
Where you can have Plo Koon, specifically not the Highlander one. Highlander is going to be really interesting for other reasons, but Plo Koon in a 40-40 standard, I think could be kind of insane.
Oh, yeah.
And hilarious. So I was really psyched
good.
that they scheduled some of those side events just to give people an option to play something totally different. I mean, I'm assuming that a lot of Worlds attendees are grinding like their Worlds deck a bunch and are going to play it a bunch. Having a chance to just play something weird and off the wall and earn some prize tickets is, I think, going to be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and Plo Koon is, the best Jedi.
He's
clearly,
up there.
So
I mean, I'm really like Kit Fisto, but since we don't
you
have
already
him
diss
yet,
Watt. You don't have to go here. You mentioned called out the 40-40 side event. Do you guys have side events that you are specifically excited for?
The 40-40.
Yeah.
Even
really
Highlander.
cool.
I love like deck building, so if you want to really
Sure.
think differently there, like you fill your deck with 40 different cards, like that's
And it just makes
challenge.
you look at it, kind of like I enjoyed our Sealed League or enjoyed draft play, because it forces you to consider cards that you would probably not consider otherwise. And when you play those cards, especially in a constrained environment where you're not just going to get your butt kicked, it's really cool to get those out of the binder and see, oh, hey, like, I appreciate this in a different way now that I've actually used it and seen what it can do. So,
especially in Infinite with so many
that's
so many cards to choose from.
Yeah.
It'd be really fun.
I'd love to build an Infinite 40-40 deck to just play like for fun with some people, but I just don't know that I'll have time having a kid and having less than a week now to go. Because there's so many cards to consider and so much to think about.
We definitely play tested the 40-40 Infinite a little bit, but still felt like I
Just
felt
barely
like I
scratched the
only scratched the
surface.
surface.
Yeah.
There's so many possibilities with that. So.
Yeah.
I'm also really excited for the 3v3. That'll be great.
Yeah.
Getting to play all three different formats, and sort of it's been a game that's had so much team camaraderie anyway. There's all these big teams show up for all these events, so that'll be really great to see people get to like actually work as a unit and cheer each other on, and it'll be great.
There's a petition in the Twitch chat to have the three of you play in the 3v3 tournament as a team. So we actually have some Destiny prizes here that have not yet been shown. Do we want to throw those under the camera over here and show those
so
off
there's
for
some
people?
stuff under the camera. We actually have a couple things to show off. We have the shield tokens that we showed a picture of in the article.
There's like a million different kinds though.
Yeah.
There are many. There are, I think, north of 10 different varieties. I got some already over here.
Do you have all of the kinds?
Not all of them.
Okay,
We can
put
show
more
some
kinds under there.
I think there's around 10 different clone head shield tokens. It's a little bit macabre how many clones we had to relieve of their heads. But
They come in like blind bags, right?
yeah, so Destiny Prize Wall, you're gonna be able to buy, spend your prize tickets and get cards and playmats, things like that. We're also gonna have 2 different types of blind bag available. So in blind bag number 1, you will get 3 of these nifty little metal and enamel shield tokens. Which set you get is random. And with the shield tokens, there's actually like some are more rare than others. So I think Cody or Rex or some of the more popular clones. Those will be a little bit harder to find, but you can trade, you can mix and match, get a different set, get them for your team, whatever you want.
Yeah.
The other option will be the foil cards that we showed a little video, I think, on Facebook previewing those. Those are kind of laid out here.
Many of them.
There's a lot of them. First off, the regular non-foil version of all those is on the prize wall for like 1 or 2 tickets. So if you just want the full art card, go pick out exactly what you want. The foils will be in a blind bag with 2 regular cards and 1 foil. You can get those and then trade and get the ones you want. The foils are all the same rarity. There is no chase version. They're just mixed in. So we're kind of experimenting with this whole blind bag thing. It's something like Star Wars Celebration did it for pins.
Yeah.
I thought it was awesome. You get that trading thing going. The tokens in particular come in their own little individual baggies, so easy to swap around with those and interact with some people, meet some people you hadn't met before.
Yeah.
So we're interested to see how that goes, and I think it's a cool way to have a ton of different prizes available and just give people a reason to go grind some tickets and go fishing.
For sure. And we should mention that, so currently, or last we checked, which I think was yesterday afternoon, there are 517 people registered for the Destiny World Championship, which is the biggest
by a significant margin.
The biggest tournament we've ever run.
Yes.
And tickets are still open through tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow, I believe we said 5 p.m. So if you're just
like
seeing this and realizing
fence,
oh my gosh, the blind bags, I have to be there.
I want to play in the biggest tournament.
There are still hotel rooms, tickets, and flights. Yeah. Sign up and join us because
help us make history.
It's going to be crazy.
Yes, sounds awesome.
Yeah.
No, the playmat over here, the Vader playmat is going to be on the prize wall too.
Yep.
And plenty of other stuff, but the blind bags thing is a new thing that I think is going to be really fun and just be a cool thing to do at Worlds for people. And I love these clone tokens. They are really cool.
All right, so we before we move on to the X-Wing section, we do have a couple of spoiler cards from Covert Missions.
Wow.
So
Jeremy picked out himself, so if you don't like them,
blame me.
Yeah, blame Jeremy.
There's also a spoiler shown inadvertently already that people probably maybe noticed.
Yeah,
We'll see.
they've 100% noticed that.
I figured. You guys are pretty sharp, but...
All right, so the first card is Snoke's Praetorian Guard, so that should be appearing somewhere here. But basically, you'll notice it is a non-unique character with regular and elite versions, which seems pretty cool.
That's new.
8 health, it's at 811 points. It's got a die that you can see there. I won't read that off. It says, after you activate this character, you may remove one of its character dice showing damage. To remove a die showing damage with a value of 2 or less. So basically, you roll in. It's 50% damage on its die. Oh no, you don't have to roll damage. No, you do. You do.
Yeah,
I agree. So you got 50% chance of removing one of their damage dice.
Sure.
If he's not elites.
Yeah.
But he could be elites.
So
That's right.
better than 50%.
Even better.
So it's kind of it's a little bit like Guardian in some ways.
Some ways, yeah.
But especially if you don't have any money, you roll in for the 2 melee for 1 resource. Cool, I'll just remove some damage. I think it's pretty cool.
So yeah, that's our kind of new sub-theme for the set. We're doing elites that are non-unique, potentially. And we'll have more of those in the sets, and each faction and color will have one. So
Ooh, cool.
we have other cards that work with them, some upgrades that can be played only on elites, or get bonuses for being on elites. So it's kind of a fun thing to do with elites matter kind of focus. So
Yeah, it's cool to see you guys exploring the design space, a little bit like that, trying a new thing that hasn't been done before.
Yeah, and we got one other card to show here. We have Jedi Trials. Oh, Matt's showing off the mat right now. So
Everybody keeps saying
we'll
they
pause
love
for a second to
I don't know
show
if
off
they're saying
this
they
mat.
love the Matt or Matt, but either
They're
both.
saying
You guys
both.
definitely both.
They're saying both. There's a lot of Matt Holland for president.
Oh,
I don't want that job.
All right.
This is mine. It lives on my desk now.
Oh.
Pretty happy with it.
So second card, Jedi Trials. So this is a blue hero plot. 2 points.
This one's cool.
Action. Spot an apprentice character that has 3 blue abilities, 3 shields, and its character dice are showing a combined value of 3 or more. Heal 3 damage from it, ready it. It gains Jedi, and it gains 1 die, a set-aside copy of its character die on it. Set this plot aside.
They can finally graduate.
Yeah.
The dream.
So you can have 3 character dice?
If
It doesn't
was an
restrict
elite
that it's not
apprentice,
elite?
yeah.
That's sweet.
Okay. I mean, there's
really
several conditions in there. You gotta have 3 abilities, 3 shields.
It's not easy, but
And showing 3 to 3 on the dice.
Yep. Yep.
Always 3 there are.
Do you
rule 3, right?
do you have a specific apprentice that you really want to use this with?
I know he's been playing with it lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ray's pretty good.
Yeah.
Ahsoka's pretty good. And a lot of the time, you want to try and include at least 2 apprentices in your deck to have the redundancy, because
You don't want them to kill the one.
Yeah, when they see that plot, the best move is just kill Ahsoka immediately, right?
Right.
So
Can you do it with a youngling? No, because they don't have any character dice.
It's not worth it.
That would be
But
terrible.
yeah.
Don't do that.
Could do it.
They're not ready for that level yet. They're just a little youngling. And this is kind of another spoiler, but there might be another card eventually in the future that might let you give apprentice to other characters and
Blue characters.
open up the plot.
Could you do it to a Claudite shapeshifter if you chose them to gain the apprentice trait for that turn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, probably not good. I'm just more
No,
curious.
but you could. Yeah. It's interesting.
Do like 2 apprentices in the Claudite.
You got
Really robust.
The upcoming Luke in set 9. That's maybe a good starting point. It's very thematic.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
We've just been spoiled.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't track what we have and haven't spoiled at this point.
Yeah, it's just a really fun card that kind of shows off what this set's about. It's
Sure.
covert missions, use a mission plot, and be lots of cards that kind of work with mission stuff to give people something different to do. It's kind of fun to
Yeah.
have a plot to build around and have a goal,
Certainly.
a unique objective to achieve, and if you do, it feels great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
that's
the
awesome.
effect if you pull it off is
Yeah, really cool.
really quite good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's sweet. All right. Do you guys have anything else that you'd like to say to the community before we switch over to XWing?
Well, look forward to seeing everybody at Worlds next week. Hope you can come out and have a lot of fun. It'd be a great time.
Yeah, whether you're a serious competitive player and you want to become the next world champion, or if you just want to come and hang out with a lot of people who love the same game as you and play a lot of games and get some cool swag, Worlds is a great place to do that. Like,
Yeah.
I attended Worlds as an attendee several times, and even if you get your butt kicked the whole time, it is a really cool experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Jeremy and Aaron, for joining us.
Hey, guys.
We'll welcome Brooks and Max on here. As they're coming on, there's a question in the chat for you, Matt. How do they get the Vader mat?
Vader mat, I believe, will just be on the prize wall.
Okay.
There's a couple different mats on the prize wall. There's an Ewok one and some other things like that. So you save your tickets up and come by and get that.
Are they? I'm sorry, I lost the question. Will a list of possible blind bag contents be available at Worlds?
Yeah, we will definitely have a list of all the different
Like possibilities?
clone options,
Yeah.
and then I'm sure we can have a list of what alt arts there are. Actually, the alt arts, the foils are the same as the non-foil versions, which will be on the prize wall. So you'll be able to see what is in there and what could be.
Will you be able to see still, or get some of the old spot glosses still on the prize wall?
I believe we will have some of the old spot glasses and other stuff on the prize wall too. This is just the new stuff that we made for the prize wall, which there was a lot of.
Yeah, there is a lot. Well, you may have heard them eagerly whispering before you saw them on camera, but here they are.
We were admiring these tokens because we haven't seen them before. They look real cool.
Yeah,
So-
aren't they amazing?
I will point out, I plan to get these for both my Destiny decks, but also my Galactic Republic X-Wing ships, because if I'm playing Arcs or something like that, or Torrents, these are awesome shield tokens or target locks.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, you could even get the locks, for specific people. I don't know how many of
Exactly.
these
There's a
named
lot.
characters we have, but
There's a
yeah.
lot. Cody, Rex, multiple others that I can't think of right now. I just spent an
And
hour
more.
bagging tokens in little black bags, so it's been melting in my brain.
Yeah. All right, so
X-Wing.
let's talk X-Wing.
Yes.
Let's.
So a similar sort of question. What does the meta look like? What can we expect to see? You guys have prepared this really awesome kind of retrospective look at previous Worlds, since this is the first Worlds that will be played in second edition.
Yeah, so
Yes.
it's a really interesting meta right now because I would say it is pretty uncertain, I think, in a lot of ways, because the Nantex dropped right on what I would have said is the Jedi meta.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so the question is going to be a really fascinating group psychology question of who decides to do what.
A little bit of game theory.
So it's going to be really hard to say what's going to win. I mean, with that said, I think that there's going to be... my prediction is that something we're not even thinking about is going to win, really. Like
You're thinking like a sort of Biggs walks the dogs type situation where somebody looks at what they think the meta is going to be and brings a counter that they have practiced with.
Yep.
And not calling out Paul Heaver in particular, but something like that.
So if we look historically here, I don't know if you have copied this. So if we look historically, we'll see that a lot of these, the winning lists are these sort of like surprise wins or like significant twists on a formula.
Sure.
Like a great example of that is Justin Pua's 2017 list, which was not as surprising components, but as you put the other day, unsurprising components used in really surprising ways.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is going to be people bringing things and flying differently as well as building their list differently, and having a plan of how to use the stuff they would bring, or at least might be considering anyways, against
the so-called like turn zero.
what they expect to come up against.
They really have a game
Well,
plan
and even
for
just how they're doing their approach, what they're focusing their abilities on. My big expectation is that there'll be something out there, whether anybody finds it or not, or puts it to best use, we'll see. Because there's a lot of player skill and there's a lot of luck involved as well.
Certainly.
But something that, a list that doesn't just execute itself, but that puts pressure on what the opponent does and gets used by someone who's not just aware of what their own list can do, but what their opponent's list can do, and puts pressure on that.
A great historical example of that we can look back to actually is Simeon's winning list,
last year.
IGs, which was all about those
Not anything anybody saw coming.
Yes.
At the time.
Yeah,
And
pair of
had-
IG-88s.
and had incredible board control effects.
Yes.
So, it had a lot of...
Ion cannon, tractor beam, rigged cargo chute,
Yeah.
ion bombs, as well as some staples like push the limit and advanced sensors.
Yeah.
Really, if you're not just counting on your opponent to make a mistake, but forcing them between two bad choices.
Because at top table at Worlds, I mean, people might be tired. Your opponent might make a mistake, but probably...
You don't want to count on that
You're
to
not
win a world championship.
You're not going to get an unforced error.
We also have the interesting situation where we really haven't had much in the way of major events since the most recent wave.
Yeah.
We've had a couple grand championships, we've had some hyperspace trials, things like that, but we haven't had a bunch of big events for the meta to kind of crystallize, or for somebody to end up running some tech that gets picked up and shows up everywhere. I think we're going to see a lot of Nantex and we're going to see a lot of Jedi, but I think we're going to see a lot of people who expect that and bring something that they think can deal with it.
I mean, I'm also curious how much people are going to be willing to commit to the Nantex, because the Nantex is a huge risk. It is a very high risk, high reward in your matchups, and that's a risky thing to do. Also, I think a lot of people probably haven't had time to get fully comfortable with it yet.
Yeah,
Sure.
And there are several things that are now possible, and actually have been possible even longer than the Nantex has been out, that could be very devastating against it, but that haven't gained a lot of prominence on their own accord. For example, a well-executed Ordnance Alpha Strike
With
can just
passive
remove
sensors?
Nantex.
Yeah.
Passive sensors in Wave 4. A number of the lesser-used Jedi with support abilities, as well as many of the existing staples like Garvindree's Dutch Vander, who can set up a really powerful opening attack without spending their points on weapons and rather than initiative and repositioning.
Sure.
I-
It's also going to, I think, be cool just to see a worlds with 7 factions. Like that's,
Yeah, for sure.
we've had those graphs of, hey, what are the 3 factions and how prevalent are they? Seeing that with a lot more variety in it is going to be really interesting. It was cool to see at Euros, and then it's going to be really cool to see here too.
Yeah, a lot more colors on the chart.
The other interesting thing is looking at the community, people have been very cagey with what they're going to bring to Worlds.
Yeah.
I have not seen a lot of discussion on the internet where people are talking about their Worlds lists, and I think it's because, the experienced players know
cooking something up.
that bringing something that everyone knows about is going to be a huge disadvantage.
Sure.
And especially in a sort of chaotic environment like this. So I think the winner is probably going to be the person who has the best sort of cross section of like a list they're experienced with, because the perfect list in the wrong hands won't get you anywhere. But also a list that is unexpected. So probably it'll be that sort of familiar components used in an unfamiliar way, or combined in an unfamiliar way.
speaking of like components and combining, what would you guys pinpoint as some of like the key power pieces for each of the factions?
Well, starting with Rebels. Rebels have quite a few. I mean, I think that there are still a lot of sort of Rebel beef archetype builds that are very strong. And
survivable, and they tend to have pretty strong attack dice.
Yep.
If you
Lots
get that
of
consistency.
flexibility and upgrades, powerful team support abilities.
And the ability to pull, because they're taking a lot of different ship types, potentially the ability to pull a lot of those different control effects in for sort of spot use. You know, like one of the things that I've seen people talk about but haven't seen too much use of yet, but Ion is really good against the Nantex. I mean, if you ionize that thing, it is toast.
It's having a bad day.
Yeah, also devices, which the Rebels have. The Rebels and Imperials, especially because they have such a deep pool of ships to draw from, have a lot of options that people may not be used to flying against.
Sure.
K-Wings have not been powerful for a while, not in 2nd edition. And some K-Wings that are set up to drop off bombs and mines, especially since they're medium bases now. Or E-Wings getting locks to come in with proton torpedoes. They're not easily self-playing lists that you just kind of resolve your sequence of effects. They'll take some skill to execute on.
But we have players who can do that.
Yes, and if their opponents aren't prepared with the maneuvering counters for those kinds of attacks, that's definitely something to watch out for.
Yeah, I think Rebels pool of medium ships has some real potential to show up too. The Arcs and the K-Wings, I think, have a lot of...
What about Imperials then? The other original flavor?
Imperial shuttle plus aces is something we've talked about.
It's been good and been proven now at a couple of large
and in many different varieties. Sometimes it's mid-initiative Inquisitors and TIE Advanced prototypes. Sometimes with force powers, sometimes with missiles. Sometimes, I mean, you can't go wrong with Sunter Fell, but it does take skill to fly them.
Yes. Even more so in 2nd edition.
Darth Vader, if you want to take him, you have to commit a lot of points in your list to it. One thing we noticed going back historically is there's a lot of sort of one character plus a group of generics to provide both kind of a block of firepower and the late game threat.
Going back all the way to the First Worlds. With,
Darth Vader and Hal Runner with 4 TIE fighters.
Which we also saw.
2012. And that was against Wedge and a bunch of
Wedge, a Y-Wing and 2 X's.
So then moving past Rebels and Empire.
And Scum.
Scum's power pieces are whatever people are not thinking about right now. That's my prediction for Scum.
Scum has a massive toolbox.
They do.
Again, I mean, these are our 1st edition lists, but all 3 of the Scum lists that have been at the top table in Worlds were a selection of characters with a wide selection of different upgrades doing different things. Other lists were using upgrades too, but the Scum lists have a lot of variety in them.
I wouldn't be even incredibly surprised. I don't think it'll go to top table, but I bet we could see a Jump Master do really well, specifically if it's Manaru. Because Manaru is one of those...
support capacity?
Manaru's support capacity is really strong. And there are some really good upgrade options you can take. It's not going to bring a ton to the table in terms of firepower, but in terms of a utility piece, it's got really high potential. Manaru's been an interesting one to points balance because despite the Jump Master being a pretty weak chassis these days, Manaru's ability is strong enough that we've seen times where we, in the internal testing, have undervalued it and ended up creating some really monstrous Scum lists. So I could see someone doing something clever with that too.
First Order, I know, like at Euro specifically, I remember from looking at the breakdowns there, not a very frequently taken faction.
No.
They don't have a particularly deep roster of ships at the moment, now that they are separate from Empire.
Importantly, also, they haven't gotten any new ones.
Correct.
In a couple
Not
of
yet.
waves.
What are you thinking is the thing to go for if you're going to fly First Order?
Well, people always reach for Quick Draw, and that's never a bad decision.
No.
Quick Draw is really good.
Quick Draw is the one First Order piece that has been at the top table in 1st edition.
Sure.
But TIE SFs generally, even without the Special Forces Gunner upgrade, have been seeing a lot of use and
pretty
some
solid.
discussion with missiles or with different gunners or with different tech or sensors. First Order can also do the sort of shuttle plus aces archetype.
And Kylo is a monster.
and it's a really beefy shuttle. How well you can execute, as always, is the question.
Certainly.
Kylo may be a significant beneficiary of precognitive reflexes. I think we'll have to see how that card pans out in general, but Kylo could get a lot out of it potentially.
Yeah.
Just for flexibility of options. He's not going to use it every turn, but he doesn't have to. Even having the option makes him much harder to predict.
I think Resistance is easy in that they have access to Heroic, which is featured in a ton of Resistance lists.
Yes.
And I expect we'll see it at Worlds. Whether it's on the A-Wings, the T-70s, it's just a really good card to add consistency. So they seem to be. I love flying Resistance. I love flying T-70s and the new A-Wings. So I'm kind of rooting to see some of them make the top table.
That's something we've seen also from the Resistance is A-Wing swarms, like with some characters or with some missiles, but not banking on the sort of combat dice efficiency pieces that like the Empire has in Hal Runner or the Scum can get with Dreer Renthal. And it's been really rewarding to see those native to attack dice ships, the A-Wing, the TIE SF, performing even without that sort of efficiency piece.
Sure.
Just by dint of flying ability and the targeted use of upgrades, whether that's missiles or talents or tech or whatever.
Snapshot could be a game changer for them too.
Yep.
I think Snapshot is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
And Galactic Republic, is it just Jedi that are the thing right now, and like Rick Oley, or is there other stuff that you're really thinking is going to show up?
I mean, the arcs.
Jedi are
Yeah, how many people are going to replace their V19s with arcs accompanying their Jedi? But, I mean, the V19 is still really efficient, really tough, and it depends how much you're willing to change your list building to deal with perceived metagame threats versus change your flying.
Sure. I'm hoping we see a decent amount of Plo Koon show up because, come on.
Oh, yeah.
Well, one of my favorite things is just to see folks repaints at the tables. Like, I love walking around the tables. People do, and the little Lego characters hanging off the flight stands, and whatever people's customizations have done, modifications to scum ships, especially where they're like have extra guns bolted on.
And Separatists, Nantex is a big kind of boogeyman, I think, for a lot of people. But the Vulture Droid.
Vulture Droids
real
without
good.
energy shell charges.
It's real good.
Yeah, I think the Vulture Droid is... I would be very surprised if we saw Quad Nantex do all that well. We'll see it.
Sure.
And
So
maybe
you're thinking more like a Nantex or a Nantex and another, two Nantex and
there's so
something
much
else?
power in that Vulture Swarm, and the thing about it is, unlike a TIE Swarm, it doesn't necessarily need that Force Multiplier piece. Seer is great if you take him, and he's fairly cheap, so you might be able to get him in there, but even if you don't, a Nantex with that, or a Nantex and an offensive Belbelub like Grievous with that, or just an offensive Belbelub like Grievous with that.
A Hyena with a mine mixed in. That's a really nasty surprise to anything fragile that relies on maneuverability.
And the other thing you get out of Separatists that I don't know, we'll see, but they had a big splash in the early days before people sort of caught on to Vulture Droids and really got interested in them. But the Sith Infiltrator, it's a really potent toolbox ship, and I think I would be.
It's a little bit, kind of feels like IG-88 in a way, like the number of different things it can take, the different ways it can be used, and the really strong abilities.
It's funny that you mentioned that, actually, because while we were designing it, the first edition Aggressor was one of our touch points for how we wanted that ship to fly. Now, it obviously wasn't going to have the synergy mechanics.
Sure.
But yeah, because the Aggressor became medium, we thought, well, okay, it'd be interesting. I had a conversation with Alex about this, actually, and he said, well, what if it was sort of, flew like the Aggressor? And so that was sort of one of the things I went back to when I was playing around with it. It also just happens to have a lot of the same features thematically.
Yeah,
it's got
bombs,
cannons, it's got
crew.
cannons, it's got crew.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so that you guys kind of touched on an interesting point with the discussion of the Separatists in particular, and kind of throughout. Where do you see sort of like the position of like character supported by mini swarm versus all aces versus a pure swarm? How do you see that kind of playing out?
I think it's going to be very dependent on the right combination of the person who hits that sweet spot of having the list that's a meta beater and knowing how to use it right. And neither one of those alone is going to get you a win, probably, at Worlds.
I suspect that the top tables will frequently involve at least one named character. The named characters bring so much to the table, not just in initiative, but in their abilities.
Yeah.
That in so many of the lists that we know about, that are popular, involve a named character and some backup, or two named characters, or sometimes more. I think that we will continue to see named characters show up in most lists, but I think there's also the potential for something to show up that is, hey, throw in a bunch of generic guys out there. So
yeah, one thing that is really interesting that factors into both the flying and the list building is the player's target priority. So in those, especially when it's an ace, a high initiative repositioning character, plus a small swarm of supporting fighters, they're banking on having the weaker fighters be targeted first to kind of whittle down the enemy to make sure that their character gets to the late game.
Mess with things.
Especially when they're taking, especially force users or other high initiative pilots who pose a big late game threat because of their repositioning ability. But if those, if you can outmaneuver that in the early game, not in the literal sense of getting out of their arcs, but in the sense of getting your attacks against the thing you want to take out, if you can remove their late game threat, then I'll take 2 X-Wings into the end game against 4 TIE fighters. It'll be rough, but it won't be...
It's not insurmountable.
That's an even odds fight.
Yep.
Whereas if I was taking that 2 X-Wings into a late game against 1 Soontir Fel and 1 other high initiative TIE fighter, that would be much more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I've seen people talking about it in the chat, but there were just some rulings that were posted up this morning, right?
Yep.
Just clarifying some things going into Worlds.
Yep.
And we are also continuing to, we've got our judge staff lined up for Worlds, and those guys and gals who are working the event are going to be going over anything that they're unclear on with the devs, so that we have a consistent experience for all the attendees at Worlds.
Right.
So there are things I'm sure that you may still be wondering. Rest assured, your judges are wondering that too, and we're getting those taken care of, even if they are not put up on our
Forums,
FAQs or things like that before Worlds because of the timeline.
It'll be rolled into the next FAQ.
Yeah, and we'll have it a consistent setup for that at the event.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple questions that I also asked the Destiny devs, but I'd like to ask you as well. What would you play if you were playing in the World Championship?
I would probably bring XYAB, Rebels, one of each.
Yeah,
one or 2 of them characters, probably proton torpedoes and a bomb on the Y-Wing. To my earlier point about target priority, if you have several of your ships all at a similar price point in terms of point costs, it's going to make it more difficult for your opponent to solo out one thing. Because if you load up, if I had Wedge Antilles with a bunch of upgrades and then 3 other unupgraded generics,
Blue Squadrons.
If I can keep Wedge into the end game, I'm in a good spot. But if I lose him early, I'm in a bad spot. Whereas if I have a balance and I have a plan for each of those ships, whatever my opponent takes out, I still have an option with. Plus, it's just iconic movie stuff. It's fun to fly.
I think I'd probably bring something flexible, like a Separatist toolbox swarm. Take Gorgal, actually, because no one will expect to see him. And then throw that in with a Sith Infiltrator or a Belbalub and some Vultures and Hyenas. That's the sort of list you'd have to practice with a lot, but I think presenting a really varied threat with a fair number of ships would do pretty well against most things. Though ultimately, for any individual, I would say you should, in a meta so chaotic, you should probably fly what you're best at, because who knows what you're going to face.
And also, it's going to be a long couple days. Fly something you enjoy flying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are potentially, if you're playing the Last Chance Qualifier, and then one of the day ones, and you make it to day 2, you are playing a lot of X-Wing. So you do need to take into account just the endurance grind that can become.
I played in one of the first 2 X-Wing Worlds. It's a long day.
It is.
And that's when it was only one day.
Those were a lot shorter X-Wing Worlds than they are now. I would probably go with Jedi of some flavor. I find the Jedi Starfighters to be so thematic and iconic and have such cool abilities that they're just a lot of fun to fly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you guys have a specific ship or upgrade that you would just really love to see on the table there?
I want to see somebody take Gorgal.
I want to see a Fire Spray do well. Fire Spray was my first love. Triple Fire Sprays, first edition, represent. But you just don't see them as much now.
Yeah, I love the Fire
And
Spray.
it's such a cool looking ship. And it's got that toolbox. Like, I want to see somebody use it.
I want to see somebody drop an electroproton bomb. I'm going to be commentating. I want to see this on stream. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
Max, are you commentating too?
I am not.
Okay, so I know Brooks and I are, and probably a couple other people. So
Yep. I think Alex Davies going to be getting in there at some point. What side events are you guys most looking forward to?
the free for all, the four person free for all, like sort of deathmatch mode. That's a thing, coming out of Epic Battles that we had sort of tried at Star Wars Celebration, and people who played there had a really good time. It's a really fun, hectic, different way to play X-Wing, and I think will be a lot of fun to see. That's the big one.
Epic Battles with huge ships. It just looks so cool.
Yeah.
So anybody who is watching and is coming to play Epic, you need to just build a squad with no huge ships, because you don't have the points for those, and you won't have the points for those before Worlds, nor will you have the ships. So Epic's just going to be a giant battle, but we will not have the huge ships. So
Then I'll have to settle for a big 400, 500 points. You know what the total is?
I think it's 400.
I'll have to settle for
a lot.
400 points of
Off the top of my
Starfighters
head.
then.
And will they be using the scenarios from Epic Battles?
I believe we're going to be printing out some of the scenarios.
Yeah.
Cool. Then I'm excited for that, because honestly, Epic Battles was designed that you don't need huge ships. They make it way cooler. They're awesome, but they're not strictly needed, and this will be a good illustration of that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are just about ready to wrap up. Let's show off a couple of these prizes for X-Wing that we haven't shown
we
yet.
have sort of teased, that if you're coming and playing the main event, or you get on the prize wall, you get Plo Koon and the matching punch. But
Yeah,
in our little prize camera thing, we have
Here, throw Plo out there as well.
some of the punch for Red Squadron Battle of Yavin folks. We got Wedge, Luke, Porkins, Biggs, Garvin, and Red Squadron veteran dial covers, pilot tokens, target locks, like ID tokens, the whole shebang. And I think the prize team, they really knocked it out of the park with cool thematic prizes like this that you can get on the prize wall. It's something they've been wanting to do for quite a while, but kind of figuring out how to do this in a way that makes sense and is doable on the relatively small scale of something like Worlds. Took a while, but it's a really fun thing, and now I wish I had them for all of my ships.
Yeah, they're right there.
No, I have all the X-Wings, but I mean
all
like
of
the other
your
ships, all the other pilots.
There are a lot of ships next week.
10 more Worlds from now, maybe
Yeah,
I'll
give
be
us
caught
time.
up.
I was saying, Worlds players, if you like these, tell us how much you like them, and
Yes.
maybe we'll be able to do more.
Yeah, like this kind of stuff, and this goes for any of the prizes that we're doing here at Worlds. Some of this stuff is things you may see show up at other events, because we're kind of trying things out. If they have a good reception, if people like them, we are always looking for ways to mix up prize kits and give people what they want. So let us know if you think they're cool.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, how do people get those, especially the Plo Koon Starfighter?
So Plo Koon Starfighter, if you are playing in the World Championship event, you will get one just for being there. Last chance qualifier players, you need to qualify for the main event. You will get yours at the main event. You do not get one for just playing in the last chance qualifier. If you do not make the main event, or if you want to get a second one because you have a friend back home who really wants it, they will be available for prize tickets in a significant but limited quantity. I don't know exactly how many. So you'll be able to get them there. We will be limiting it, so even if you have unlimited prize tickets, you cannot just get as many as you want. We've got nifty wristbands for badges this year, and that has all that built in. But you'll be able to get them if you're here at Worlds. Whether you make the main event or not, you just get it guaranteed if you do play in Worlds.
Yeah. Max and Brooks, do you have anything that you would like to say to the X-Wing community before we sign off and we see them at Worlds?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see folks at Worlds. I'll be around at various points, so say hi to me if you see me. And I'm really excited for this. I am fascinated to see what people have cooked up in terms of lists. I think it's going to be a really exciting Worlds.
Have fun and enjoy yourselves.
All right, one last question here for Matt. How many in the LCQ and how many out of there get into Worlds?
So the Last Chance qualifier is currently sitting like 330 some players.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a large X-Wing tournament in and of itself.
Yeah.
Given the number of tickets that we have sold for the main event to reserve invite seats, we are still looking at around 150 or more of the players from the Last Chance qualifier qualifying for Worlds. So
pretty good odds.
Yeah, 64 was our minimum. We will fill the event and just go down the list until we run out of space, because we want to get as many people in as we can to play on the main event. So if you're playing Last Chance qualifier, you have a pretty decent chance of making it in, getting that Plo Koon, and getting to play for all the other prizes. But even for those of you who don't, there's a ton of side events going on.
How many people will be in the Worlds?
Worlds, I believe, is going to come in just under 500, because we need to leave enough X-Wing seats for the people who don't get in, to have like side events for the people who are not playing on day 1A. The day 1B players are going to want to be doing something, so we need to have seats for all of them. The event is massively larger than the game center. Still, with about 1,000 people coming, we have to balance things in certain ways.
Questions about list submission. Tell us about that.
Later today, I believe, I'm going to email everybody who signed up.
Yeah.
And send you a link to a Google form where you'll put
personalized email, right? Like a very unique and personal email to each
it's going to take me
people.
most of the rest of the day.
And they'll scan your cursive.
I can't even write cursive now. We're going to get your name. We're going to get your hometown, your major tournament wins, all the stuff we generally ask right before you go on stream. We'll just have that. And we will require a link to your list on our official squad builder. That doesn't need to be turned in until Wednesday night. Same thing will go for the Destiny people. If you're still watching, you'll need to provide your list in a specified format. But Wednesday night, we will download all the X-Wing lists that have been submitted. That will let us generate all the cool statistics way easier and better than ever before. And we will have those all recorded as your official list submissions. So.
Perfect.
That's
there we have it. Thank you everyone so much for watching. So we stream new stuff every Tuesday and Thursday, so make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit the bell so you're notified. Except not next Tuesday, because next week is an exception. We're streaming a whole lot Wednesday through Sunday. We're going to be streaming the X-Wing and Destiny World Championships. So we got Coruscant Invitational on Wednesday, yes. X-Wing Day 1A on Thursday, Destiny Day 1A Friday, X-Wing Day 2 Saturday, Destiny Day 2 Sunday.
And Coruscant, which we didn't mention before, team event. So United States and Australia versus all of Europe.
That's right.
Going to be a real diverse mix of factions, some really, really good players. So tune in and watch that on Wednesday if you're not playing in the LCQ.
Absolutely.
That'll be fun.
Thanks to Caroline Game Tables for our table, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. See you guys next time.
Thanks.